uses the internet, very often it needs to be identified. And this is how you get an internet identity. So what are the types of things which may need an identity? Individual. So I as individual might want an identity. But there's a slight difference. In addition to me as myself, as an individual, I do have a role in an organization. For example, right now, I'm playing the role of a speaker at the INET conference. So I need to be identified. For example, we are going to put this talk on YouTube, the recording, and we will identify it as, okay, he is a speaker at INET Colombo 2011. So that would be the role it would be identified as, or as the chairman of INET Colombo 2011. Again, that would be a role, or as a professor in computer science at the University of Moratuwa. Again, a role, rather than a particular user. Similarly, you can have organizations and various parts of organizations being identified. So what really is identity? In this case, in the context of the networks, the internet. Generally, to define identity, you have something called an identifier. For example, email address. Right? An email address is basically an identifier which identifies you. Right? So it's you, right? Your email address is you. So you just give it to your friends and you know that that identifies you, and your friends know that it identifies you. Similarly, in this country, we have the national ID card that identifies you. So if you want to show that you are you, might say, okay, here's my national ID card number. Or a domain name, which could identify, in the case of an organization, that organization. Right? Many organizations really identify themselves by their website. In fact, some of them, the entire name of the organization is actually the domain name. Then, an entity which that identity identifies. So the identifier itself is not a person, it's not an entity, it's just an identifier, it's just a string usually. And that string will identify some entity, maybe a person, maybe an organization, maybe a role, maybe even just a device. So for example, we talk about IPv6 and so on. We said an IP address identifies a particular device, an interface on a computer. And then we have various attributes about the identity, like I said, okay, his date of birth is this, he lives here, he has a car, he has a computer, he has a credit card, whatever. And the capabilities of that identity. What can that identity do? Right? So if you have that particular identity and you connect to the network, what are the capabilities? For example, if I log into the learning management system at the University of Moratuwa with that particular identity, I can create a course since I am a staff member. If I logged in using a different identity as a student, well, I might be able to follow the course, but I cannot create the course since I'm a student. So like that, depending on what that particular identity is allowed to do, it may have different capabilities. So how do you get this internet identity? One possibility is you can get it from your employer or school. Some time ago, this was the most common way, right? Everybody got an email address from wherever they worked or wherever they went to school. But now things are changing. For example, you can get email addresses or other identifiers from associations. Many places, IEEE and so on, give email addresses to their members. Then from a government body. So government bodies give identifiers in the same form of national identity card numbers, passport numbers, driving license numbers, and so on. But today, many people are getting their identifiers not from their workplace, not from a government body or from association, but from various service providers like Gmail. Right? So if I ask most of you for your email address, you will say, oh, something at gmail.com. So where did you get that identity? From Google. Or Blogger. So when you use Blogger, you would use your identity which you set up or got from the blogging site. Or Facebook or Elakiri or any other site which allows you to log in and gives you an account. or from a registry like a domain registry or some other registry. For example, LK domain registry will issue you with domain names. Okay, fine. So we have so many ways of getting identities, but is that all? No, because your internet identity also consists of many things other than these formal identities which you get. For example, your internet identity also consists of things you get by posting on web pages, or sorry, posting web pages, blog entries, or anything you do on the internet is part of your identity, as long as it can be connected back to you. But that's not all. Even if you just don't do anything, right, some people say, oh, I never use Facebook. I don't like Facebook, I don't use Facebook. And you search for that person on Facebook, you get many pictures put out by maybe their friends. Because, well, anybody can post a picture and anybody can tag a person. Right? So even if you don't, somebody else might actually put pictures of you on Facebook. Or write articles, postings, anything mentioning something about you. Maybe something you don't really want anyone else to know, but still they could do that. By buying things on the net. So you go to Amazon and buy something, immediately that becomes part of your identity there. Just by looking at websites. Right? If you just look at a website, it will probably be stored somewhere saying, okay, so-and-so was tracked and he has gone and accessed this website. There are many services out there which keep track of people accessing various websites by searching for things. Right? If you search anything on Google, you think Google ignores that? No, they keep track of it. Right? So even 10 years later, they'll say, oh, on 24th May 2011, you searched for this item. You may say, well, I can't remember. It doesn't matter whether you remember or not, you did it. We know it's written down. So what are the different things you need for identity? You need a mechanism to assign an identity to an entity. You need a mechanism to verify the identity, and you need mechanisms to find attributes and capabilities of an identity. So I'm not going to go into these now. There are many different mechanisms, like user-centric identity, federated identity, and many things, but I will not go into those details since we are already late. But I just want to mention about claims-based identity. Very often, we don't really need to know who we are. For example, if you are going to, say, a cinema or something to watch a movie, it's not necessary for the cinema owner to know who you are. All they need to know is, okay, do you have a ticket? Right? So that's all they need to know. So for an eavesdropping transaction, very often we don't need to know who the buyer is or where he works. All we need to know is, okay, is he going to pay for this item? If he's going to pay for it, fine. He can have it. So very often, if you notice, when you go to various e-commerce sites, they keep on asking you for all sorts of information about yourself. Do they need that? Well, not really. All they need to know is you're going to pay. But in order to sort of assure that they're going to pay, they will ask for all this information. So for example, a claims-based identity might be, I'm eligible to vote at this election and I have not already voted. Right? That's what you need to show to go and vote at an election. You don't need to say you are so and so. In fact, in many countries, that information is completely not stored or not kept at an election, right? So when you vote, only the vote is counted, not who voted. What about behavior-based identity? Behavior-based identity is not, okay, here is so and so, here is identity. It says, well, this identity is based on the behavior of the person, or at least, maybe I wrote it wrong, it's not behavior-based identity, but behavior of a person associated with the identity. And many things we do are added on to our identity. For example, on Facebook, if you become friends with someone, you post something, you comment on something, you like something, well, all of that are added on to your identity. If you are blog on something, well, that blog or whatever you say there gets added on to your identity. But in many cases, it could be non-intentional. Right? For example, if you go to Google and search for something, that gets added on to your identity. If you go to Amazon and search for a book or buy a book or whatever, it gets added onto your identity. So it doesn't mean that you wanted to do that, but while you are doing your normal work, all that information got added on to your identity. What about reputation? Reputation is based on what other people say about you. So here's a picture which I got from Lalinda's Facebook page. And it says, a few years back, nice journey with friends. I'm sure Lalinda didn't even know that that picture was there. And I don't know whether any of the other people are there. It says in this photo, Sudhira Bandara, Upul Lekanayaka, Palinda, and various people. I don't know any of those people are there. Lalinda is here. So now, everybody in this room knows that these friends went on a trip on a train with a guitar. Okay, so is that okay? I suppose so. I mean, I assume that that's not a problem. But it does mean that many of these people probably didn't even know that whatever picture was taken is going to be on Facebook and is available for anybody to look at, right? And post and do whatever. So this is one problem, right? So on this network, on this internet, it's not just what you post. Anybody could post anything about you, put a picture about you, tag you, and do whatever they like. I will not worry too much about this. So just wanted to mention a few of types of internet identity. The first one is this so-called unverified identity. For example, if you go and get a Gmail account or a Hotmail account or a Yahoo Mail account or whatever thing, generally these are unverified. Right? All they need to know is, okay, can you look at a CAPTCHA and type in the letters there? If you can, then they assume that you are good enough to get a new identity. So it's unverified. But does it mean that, oh, it's just unverified? No. As soon as you get that, then Google or whoever will keep on collecting information about you. And after a few years or so of using your Gmail, remember that it will have access to every single email you send and every single email you receive. So it knows jolly well who you are, even though it's never verified. Then, of course, we have the organizationally verified identity. Right? So a particular company, a school or whatever, verifies that who you are so and gives you an identity. Government verified. Now this is I think some countries have already gone for that and some countries are looking at it. Should the government give an official verified internet identity for people to use? I don't know.